Hello, everyone. Before we begin, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're from and what time you're watching this. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. I'm not a superstitious man. As a former soldier, I've faced death, gunfire, and the screams that echo through the forest at night. So, you see, I thought I was tough enough not to be swayed by those silly ghost stories city people like to spin, until I took a night guard job at an old hospital. That hospital sat on the edge of the city, in an area few people passed through at night. It had once been a treatment center for soldiers during the war, then stood abandoned for 2 decades before the local government renovated. But no matter how many fresh coats of paint or modern LED lights were installed, the haunted stories clung stubbornly to its brick walls and aging hallways. My first shift started on a Friday night. The sky was pitch black. A light drizzle fell. The air was so cold, my hands went numb, even inside my gloves. I was given a walkie-talkie, a flashlight, and an access code for the security camera system. My post was the 2nd floor, which had a row of old operating rooms no longer in use. I'd heard that a serious incident had taken place. There, 1 doctor and 2 patients had died in the same night. It was never made public, and no one was willing to share the details. I sat in the security room, staring at the monitor split into 16 camera feeds. Everything was eerily still. There were no patients on the 2nd floor. The lights there had already been switched off. Only darkness remained, along with the sound of wind whistling through a cracked window pane. 11:17 P.M. Camera. A operating room forlornly flickered to life. I jolted, rubbing my eyes. The light in there had been off. The door locked. How could there be movement? I stared at the screen. A shadow, its shape indistinct, stood in the far left corner of the room. It was faint like mist, yet it stayed completely still for a long time. No swaying, no shifting, as if it were watching. A chill crept down my spine. These scary stories to tell in the dark I once laughed at began resurfacing in my mind. I grabbed the walkie-talkie. I'm seeing movement in operating room 4. Can someone check the camera feed for me? No response. I tried again. 2nd floor. Camera 8, unusual movement detected. Still silence. I stood up, gripping my flashlight. The unease crawling through me wouldn't let me stay still. I had to check if there was an intruder. The 2nd floor had only 1 entrance. Located at the far end of a long hallway, the light flickered every 3 seconds. I walked slowly. Each step echoed back in the cold emptiness. The tiles made a clack, clack sound, like the beat of a nervous heart. When I reached operating room 4, the door was ajar. I was certain it had been locked at the start of my shift. Inside was pitch black. I swept the flashlight beam inside, my hand trembling slightly. The room was empty. Only an old operating table, a few dusty medical cabinets, and a smell musty, mixed with something metallic, like dried blood. I stepped inside. Suddenly, my flashlight went out. I tapped it. Nothing. My phone had no signal either. The darkness swallowed everything. Then I heard it breathing, right behind me, slow, deep, raspy, like it came from a throat burned raw. I spun, power around, no one, but the metallic scent of blood was stronger than ever. I stepped back, and my foot hit something soft, cold, and slippery. I turned on my phone's flashlight and froze. A white lab coat, stained with blood, lay on the floor. The name on it read Dr. Samuel Cross. I remembered that name. He was the doctor who had died in the fateful surgery.
Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk the next morning. I didn't go home right away. I sat still in the security room for over an hour, just trying to convince myself that what I had experienced was real. I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't paranoid. I had proof. I accessed the server and pulled up the camera footage from last night. At first, everything matched my memory. The shadow appearing in operating room for at 11:17 p.m. The door ajar as I approached, the lights going out, the breathing. I fast dash-forwarded. Then I stopped. Because from 11:29 p.m. to 11:57 p.m., the feed from operating room 4 didn't exist. A black gap, no signal, no video, no audio. I tried again. I even used recovery software. Nothing. It was as if the entire segment had been erased from the inside. I felt a tremor run through me. Who had access to the system besides me? I called the technical department. No one logged into the system during the night, they said. You probably saw it wrong, or it's just a data glitch. Happens all the time. All the time. Video disappearing at the exact moment I was trapped in the operating room. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched not by a person, but by the hospital itself. I decided to check all the cameras on the second floor, and then, on hallway camera 2A, I saw something strange. At 11:43 p.m., the exact time, I was locked inside. A figure drifted down the corridor. No footsteps, no sound. It slid across the floor like dense smoke, moving straight toward operating room 4, and just before reaching the door, it vanished completely. I zoomed in. The image quality was poor, but I could make out something like a face. Half the face was burned, eyes pure white. It was him, the shadow I had seen the night before. The shadow I thought was just a hallucination. I saved the clip to a USB drive, but when I plugged the USB into my personal computer at home, the file gave an error. Data not recognized, corrupted format. It wouldn't open, couldn't be copied, and then I heard that breathing, right there, in my room. I turned around, no one, but the window was ajar, and the sheet of paper on my desk had flipped over. I approached. On it in dark, crimson ink was a jagged message. "Why did you save it?" I screamed, throwing the USB to the floor. I began to feel as if the world around me was fracturing, every piece of logic, every explanation splintering away. I called my closest friend, Mark, who worked in the city's security department. He had investigated several mysterious disappearances in abandoned buildings. I figured if anyone could help me decode this, it was him. We agreed to meet the following evening at a cafe near the hospital. I told him everything from the camera footage, the breathing, the shadow, to the erased recording. Mark stayed silent for 5 minutes. Then he asked a question that that sent a shiver down my spine. Have you ever heard of Patient 13? I shook my head. In the old hospital records, there's an entry for a mysterious death in 1999, he said. A man was left unattended on the operating table. By the time a nurse found him, his body was severely burned. But the cause was never determined. The burns came from inside his body. It felt like lightning struck me. No one claimed the body. No one knew his real name. They only listed him as Patient 13. But here's the disturbing part. 3 months later, everyone in the surgical team from that night was dead. Accidents, suicides, disappearances. Each one had told someone they'd been hearing breathing in the night. I left the cafe with my legs trembling. Logic told me to quit my job, leave the city, destroy every trace of evidence. But something deeper urged me to return to Operating Room 4, because I knew that if I didn't go back, if I didn't face it, I would never escape it. No one escapes until they know the final truth. That night, I returned to the hospital alone. No lights, no phone, just the old flashlight. I stepped into the second floor. Hallway, the air felt dense, compressed. Every breath was heavy, tinged with the metallic scent of old blood. When I reached the door to Operating Room 4, I froze. It was already open. There was no wind, no reason for it to be open. But it was, and inside amid the darkness lay an object in the center of the room. I stepped closer. It was the USB I had dropped the night before, sitting on the operating table. I had never brought it here, but it had come here. And then I heard footsteps, not from the hallway, but from above me. Something was crawling down from the ceiling, following the trail of everyone who had ever seen it. Asterisk, if you find the above story interesting, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, I froze in place. The us be the one I thought I had thrown away. The one that had vanished was lying squarely on the operating table. No dust, no scratches, as if someone had just placed it there. Right before I walked in, I scanned the room. The walls were ice cold. Shadows clung to every corner, and then I heard the sound of footsteps from above, from the ceiling. Not scratching, not the skittering of rats, but the distinct sound of human limbs, joints cracking, as if something was slowly crawling right over my head. I tilted my flashlight upward. There was a ventilation hatch. I shined the beam inside. Nothing, just a deep, endless black. I turned back to the USB. I couldn't leave without it. I reached out, and the light flickered. In that split second of illumination, I saw an upside-down face peering down from the opening eyes, as black as void, a crooked smile, and skin scorched and peeling. I stumbled backward. A hand, grey and trembling, reached down from the ceiling, straining to grab me. I screamed and bolted out of the room. The second-floor hallway stretched on endlessly. I ran, my heart pounding, but the footsteps followed. Even though I couldn't see anyone, I could feel the weight of them. They didn't echo like normal steps. It was as if they were clinging to the walls, moving overhead, crawling after me like a spider. But it wasn't a spider. It was something I couldn't name. I reached the fire escape door, but when I grabbed the handle, it burned with a cold. so sharp it seared my skin, as if the metal itself had frozen solid in a dead winter night. I pulled my hand away. Blistered dot behind me, the footsteps stopped. The air grew thick, pressing against my chest. I turned around. No one was there, but on the wall was the imprint of a bloody hand. That night, I left the hospital and never returned. A week passed. I quit my job, shut off my phone, deleted my social media, and moved somewhere new. I wanted to forget. I wanted to push those creepy stories out of my head. But I couldn't, because every night, as soon as I drifted off to sleep, I dreamed of the ceiling opening, and someone crawling down, moving toward me slowly. I would wake up drenched in sweat. But on the ceiling above my bed, there were scratches. I told no one. No one would believe me anymore, until I received an anonymous email. "You're not the only one who's seen it." The sender was a woman named Rachel, a former nurse at that very hospital in 2011. She said that for the 4 months she worked on the second floor, she constantly heard tapping from the ceiling, saw objects vanish, and spotted shadowy figures. Standing at the end of the hallway, once, she took a selfie in operating room 4. In the photo, there was a black figure clinging to the ceiling, staring directly into the camera. 3 days later, she quit. She attached the photo for me. I opened it. It was the same face, the burns, the dead white eyes, the stiff, unnatural smile like someone had stitched it onto a real person's skin with a scalpel dot. My stomach churned. I decided to meet her. We met in an old, almost forgotten cafe. Rachel was thin, her long hair falling to cover half her face. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Yet every word pierced my skull like an icy needle. She said, "It doesn't stay in the hospital. It follows people. People who've seen it." I asked, "What is it?" Her eyes shimmered with tears. "It's an unburied memory, an unforgiven mistake, a forgotten grudge." I didn't understand. She explained that according to old records, patient 13 had once been a doctor accused of performing unauthorized surgeries while in a psychological breakdown. When the incident was uncovered, he set himself on fire right on the operating table, and after that, no body was ever found. From her pocket, she pulled out an old yellowed sheet of paper, a copy of an internal hospital log. July 21st, 1999. Reports say footsteps are heard on the ceiling every night, but no one is on the second floor. No rats, no people, only wind, or maybe not just wind. A shiver ran down my spine. Rachel asked softly, "Do you hear the footsteps in your dreams?" I nodded. She gave a sad smile. "Then it's chosen. You." That night, I received an MMS from an unknown number. It was a short video clip, no title. I opened it. It was footage from operating room 4, but not like anything I'd seen before. The angle was tilted, the colors tinged red dot in the video. A man lay motionless on the operating table. The face was mine. Then, a black shape slowly crawled down from the ceiling, slithering toward me, and whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, but its eyes locked onto the camera lens. The screen went black dot, and then a single line appeared. "No one leaves this place without taking it with them." I looked up at the ceiling in my new apartment. No cracks, no openings, no sound. But I knew if I closed my eyes, I would see it. The person on the ceiling, still crawling closer. Asterisk, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode, where there are no cameras. Hello everyone. Before we get started, Make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, I could no longer tell what was real and what was a nightmare. 3 days had passed since I received that strange video footage of me lying motionless on an operating table, with something crawling down from the ceiling. Ever since, I hadn't been able to sleep deeply. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the ceiling split open, and from the darkness, it would slither out slowly, silently crawling along the ceiling like some thinking predator, then stopping directly above me. It never came closer. It never went away. It just stayed there. I had stepped into a place without cameras. I had seen what no one should ever see. But what scared me most wasn't the image. It was the silence afterward, because it meant it had crawled out of the ceiling, and it was looking at me. I decided to do something I had sworn never to do: go back to the hospital. Not out of curiosity, not out of bravery, but because I knew only there could I find answers. I brought a small hidden body cam strapped under my jacket. If anything happened, I'd have it on record. I walked into the hospital like any anonymous visitor. No one recognized me. No one from my old night shifts was still there. They'd changed the roster. I'd heard the new guard had quit after his very first night. I took the stairs up to the second floor. No one followed me. No sound at all. But I didn't go to operating room 4. Instead, I went to the old section behind the main hallway, a place no camera ever covered. A forgotten stretch of darkness. It had once been the hospital's medical records room, abandoned for years. The wooden door was warped with rot, the nameplate long gone. No one spoke about it. And most importantly, no cameras. I switched on my flashlight, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. Inside, it was pitch black. But immediately, I sensed the air was different. Not just dust and mold, but the stale scent of time locked away, of something desperate to be buried, yet endlessly screaming to be unearthed. I moved past rows of collapsed filing cabinets. One old drawer was jammed. I yanked it, hard dust exploded into the air. Inside was a thin folder, unmarked except for one line scrawled by hand. Case 13, internal record. I opened it. The first photo made my hands tremble. The face of a man almost unrecognizable. Half his face burned, his left eye milky white. The corner of his mouth torn wide, as if slashed. Underneath it read, Dr. Andrew Turner, Surgery Department, missing since July 21st, 1999. I swallowed hard. Next was a scanned incident report, with handwritten notes in the margin. Subject exhibited signs of acute psychosis. Performed unauthorized surgery on unidentified patient. Motive unknown. Upon discovery, subject barricaded himself, set entire operating room on fire. Body never recovered. Cameras inactive at the time. Evidence suggests deliberate data erasure. Turned to the last page. A personal journal entry, written in jagged handwriting. I will not disappear. They plan to erase me from this place, but I am still here. I still have eyes to see, and the ceiling will be where I wait. Cameras cannot see me, but you can. I closed the file. My entire body was ice. Then I heard it 3 knocks, not at the door. From the ceiling, slow, deliberate, chilling. I raised my flashlight upward. The ceiling was stained with old watermarks, but one panel of plaster was cracked open, revealing darkness inside. I couldn't look away, and from within, a hand reached out. Long, grey, veiny, its fingers hooked onto the edge, like a spider's legs. I stepped back. The footsteps began echoing through the room, but nothing moved on the floor. I tilted my head back. It was crawling along the ceiling. Following me, its head twisted upside down. Unblinking eyes locked onto mine. Its mouth began to open, and I heard that familiar whisper, "Why did you come back?" I bolted, didn't close the door, didn't take anything. I didn't stop until I reached the main road where there were people, where there was light. I gasped for air like a drowning man. The body cam was still recording. I prayed it had caught something. But when I checked it home, the video file was empty. 0 bytes, nothing. Once again, every trace was erased like. It refused to let itself be recorded. No evidence. No lens could hold it. But there was one thing it couldn't erase. Me. I remembered everything. And that's why I'm telling you this. Now, because, as you hear my voice, maybe you're also in a place with no cameras. And if you hear soft knocking on your ceiling after this video ends, don't look up, because it knows you're watching. Asterisk. Please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode, Eyes in the Mirror. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, since the night I returned to the hospital, the place without cameras, I began to feel something inside me changing. I was no longer myself. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw something off. Very small at first, but clear. Sometimes the eyes and the reflection would linger on me for just a moment too long. Sometimes I'd turn away, yet the reflection stayed for a heartbeat. Sometimes I saw myself smiling, even though I wasn, single quotes. At first, I thought it was just exhaustion, stress, psychological trauma after all my encounters with it. But those little details began to grow. One night, while brushing my teeth, I saw in the mirror the ceiling behind me cracked open. A dangling hand lowered itself, just like in the hospital. I spun around, nothing. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was still staring up at the ceiling, out of sync with me. I ran out of the bathroom. I didn't dare go back. I didn't dare smash the mirrors, if doing so would release whatever was trapped inside. I called Claire, the former nurse who had sent me Dr. Andrew Turner's file. I needed someone who had also seen it through a mirror. She answered, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Don't let it take your gaze. The mirror is a door, the other side of the room. It doesn't reflect, it records." She told me that after she quit, she covered every mirror in her home each night. It only needs one look, one meeting of the eyes. That's enough to tear the space open. I asked, "So what if I've already seen it in the mirror?" Silence. Then she hung up. I lived in a constant state of fear. I removed every mirror from my home, even my phone screen, my computer monitor. I taped over the rearview mirror in my car. But mirrors aren't just objects. Whenever I passed a shop window, I saw my reflection turn to look at me. Whenever I looked into water, I saw my own face cracked like porcelain about to shatter. I began to lose track of time. I didn't know when I'd fallen asleep. Sometimes I'd wake up in the bathroom, razor in hand, with no memory of how I got there. I installed security cameras around my home, like a paranoid man chasing ghosts. I needed to know, was I doing things without knowing it? The first night, I replayed the living room footage. At 2:31 a.m., I walked out of my bedroom. The strange thing was Jai was also still asleep on the couch. There were two of me. The other me walked straight to the living room mirror. The one I had removed, leaving only the empty frame. He stood in front of the empty frame and smiled. A crooked, toothless, soulless smile. Then he vanished, never came back. I was stunned. That video, I couldn't save it. The file deleted itself after 10 minutes, as if it refused to allow any visual evidence to exist longer than memory. Remembered a line from Andrew Turner's file. The mirror is where we see what the real world will not allow us to see. I went to the city library where the hospital's pre-2000 records were stored. I found a copy of an internal medical board ruling against Turner. The file stated that he had once researched near-death experiences and the separation of the soul from the body through reflection. One excerpt read, "Dr. Turner believed that if the gaze was strong enough when looking directly at oneself, could create a rift between reality and the self in the mirror. The first person to try lost control of his mind, and the shadow in the mirror replaced him." I sat there in silence, sweat dripping, heart pounding. I thought about the video, the first night in the operating room, the hand reaching from the ceiling dot, and I understood. The shadow I had seen wasn't a ghost. It was a version of me twisted living in the reflective world, now crossing over, and it wanted to replace me. That night, I locked every door, placed cameras in every corner. I sat facing the only mirror I had left, a small bathroom mirror covered with a cloth. I pulled the cloth away in the mirror. It was me, but my eyes were slightly misaligned. I slowly raised my right hand. In the mirror, he raised his left. Out of sync, I whispered, "Who are you?" In the mirror, he smiled. His lips no longer moved with mine, and he whispered, clear, as if he were in the room, "I've always been here." I screamed and smashed the mirror, but before the glass shattered completely, I saw one last image, me in the mirror, still there, still standing, still smiling, no glass, no reflection. But those eyes remained inside my mind. I thought I had destroyed it. But something feels wrong. Every time I pass through a glass door, I feel as though I've stepped into someone else's world, and the gaze from behind the glass is no longer mine. Asterisk, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode. The mirror is broken, but he's still here. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, I shattered. The mirror shards scattered across the floor, blood everywhere. I thought that would end it all. But I was wrong. Breaking the mirror didn't kill him. It set him free. I felt the change the very next morning. I looked at my hand and saw a faint burn mark on my right wrist. I had no memory of being burned. I opened the refrigerator. Every scrap of food was gone. Only a note remained, written in handwriting identical to mine. "Stop eating. I need the body clean." I checked the security cameras in my house. Were still working. I rewound the footage from the night before. No one, no movement, no sound, no me. I started losing my grip on time. Sometimes, I left the house with no memory of where I went. My clothes would be covered in mud. My phone held messages I never sent. "Help me, I'm trapped." In my dreams, I stood between two mirrors, reflections on both sides. In one, I was normal. In the other, I was burned, skin peeling away in strips, grinning with jagged teeth. Both of me spoke at once. I'm the real one. Claire called me after days of silence. She said, "You're not you anymore. Your voice, it's off." I asked. "Off how?" She whispered, like it's being played back from an old tape. Out of sync, without a soul. I begged her for help. She agreed to meet one last time, but only somewhere without mirrors, without reflections, without white light. We arranged to meet in an empty basement beneath an old bookstore, a place once used to store wartime records. She arrived, carrying a small round mirror wrapped in red cloth. She set it on the floor and asked, "Are you sure the thing in the mirror escaped?" I nodded. She pulled away the cloth. The mirror reflected nothing, only a dense black swirl, like the mouth of a bottomless well. Claire whispered, "If it's out, then the one speaking to me right now might not be the real you." I froze. She drew a small dagger, its blade etched with ancient symbols. I once used this to cut the mirror soul out of myself. It hurt, but I survived. She looked at me. "Will you try?" I placed my left hand on the floor and closed my eyes. She pressed the blade between two of my fingers, right where she said the energy lines crossed. It didn't feel like pain. It felt like something was being pulled out from my bones. I screamed then. A thin black wisp drifted out of my hand, twisting in the air before sinking into the mirror. The mirror cracked instantly. Claire gasped for breath. I nearly blacked out. When I came to, she was gone. Only a line was carved into the broken glass. It never goes far. It waits for a slip. I went home. I thought it was over. But when I crossed the threshold, I knew I was wrong. On the wall, written hundreds of times in black ink, were the words, "I'm still here. I'm just borrowing your face." Every line written in my own handwriting. I checked the security cameras, fast dash-forwarded at 3:14 a.m. He woke up, took a marker, and wrote on the wall while keeping my eyes closed. Smiling all the while, I screamed. I smashed furniture, tore at the walls, burned my notebooks, shut off my phone. I wanted to end it all. I looked into my computer's web command, saw myself sitting at the desk before I'd even turned it on. I saw myself looking back, lips moving silently. My turn. I yanked the plug, turned off the lights, but the monitor stayed on, still showing me except from an angle that didn't exist in the room. I was being replaced, not just on the outside, but inside my mind. My memories erasing one by one. Sometimes I spoke and couldn't remember what I'd said. One day I looked at a picture of my mother and didn't recognize her. I went to the last place I thought might save me. An ancient temple known for performing exorcisms once, treating victims of mirror spirits. The abbot studied me for a long moment, then said, "You are no longer whole. Part of your soul is trapped on the other side of the mirror. And the thing here is wearing your body to learn how to be human." I dropped to my knees and wept. He shook his head. "I can seal it, but I cannot separate you. You've locked eyes with it too many times." That night, they placed me in a circle of Bodhi ash and red thread. They chanted. I began to tremble violently. Outside the ritual room, glass cracked again, and again the sound like bones breaking. Wind rushed in, though there were no windows, and from the bare wall, a face pushed through as if molded from clay was mine, but torn, burned. eyeless, mouth gaping wide. I fainted when I woke. The temple was sealed. No one remained, only me and the small mirror lying in the middle of the ceiling, circle untouched. The mirror no longer reflected me, but when I leaned close, I heard laughter, my voice. From the other side of the glass, the mirror was broken. The seal was set, but he didn't disappear, because he no longer lived only in the mirror. He lived in me. Asterisk, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode. Erased memories. I don't know who I am anymore. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, I used to remember everything. My name, my hometown, the dishes my mother used to cook on Sundays. But now, when I try to recall, there is only silence, not forgetting more, like those things never existed. I opened my phone, my contacts list was empty. The photos on my device were of places I had never visited, and in every picture there was a man in a black hoodie standing. Far away, his back turned, always present. I zoomed in on his face, there was nothing, just a blurred smear. But I knew it was him. I tried calling my mother. The phone replied, "This number does not exist." I searched for family photos. None. I dug into my memories, and suddenly realized I couldn't even remember my mother's face. Every familiar face, every warm memory, aced as if they had never been. I began to panic. I started writing a journal. Each night, I wrote down details. My name, the date, where I was. But each morning, the pages had changed handwriting. Some lines were written in a slanted script with dark ink, as if made from old ink or dried blood. You're no longer you. I live in memory. Every time you forget, I grow stronger. I went to see a psychiatrist. When the doctor asked, "What's your last name?" I went silent. A massive void opened inside my mind. I couldn't remember my own surname. The doctor began to suspect I had severe delusions, signs of identity, dissociation, a form of dissociative disorder. But I knew this wasn't illness. This was possession. I returned to the temple where they had performed the sealing ritual days ago. The doors were locked. No one was inside. On the cement floor, a line scrawled in charcoal. The seal cannot hold if the host forgets his name. Whispered my name, but I heard two voices speaking at once. One was mine. The other was deeper, wetter, echoing from a pit. That night, I tried one final experiment. I turned on my webcam, recording through the night. I wrote on my arm, "I am Haoi, 8 de Janeiro 5. The next morning, when I woke up, my arm was clean, but on the webcam recording, I saw myself getting up in the middle of the night, taking a razor blade, and scraping the words off my skin. I or he turned to the camera, smiled, and said, "If he still remembers, I haven't won, but he's forgotten now." I sat before the mirror, staring deeply into my own eyes. I asked, "Who are you?" In the reflection, I smirked. Wrong question. It's, "Who are you still?" I tried to recall the last time I truly laughed. The last time I slept peacefully. The last time I cried for real. I couldn't. I started doubting if I was the real one. Maybe he had already won, and either one telling this story was just a leftover fragment. Struggling before I vanished, I sought out Claire, the only person who would ever survive something like this. We met in an old tea shop, brick walls, no mirrors anywhere. She stared at me for a long time. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry, but your eyes are no longer yours." I wanted to scream, "I'm still me." But I didn't, because deep down, I knew she was right. I had started thinking thoughts that weren't mine. Sometimes I laughed without reason. Sometimes I saw strangers familiar, yet wrong, staring back at me through my own reflection. Claire placed an old photo on the table. It was a group picture. Doctors and nurses from a hospital in 1999. In the last row, There was a man in a black hoodie, standing just behind the crowd. His face was blurred, but I recognized him. It was Mimi, as I am now. I asked, was I there? She replied, no, but he was. He has always lived in the forgotten. One's her final whisper. If you want to hold on to what's left of your humanity, you must remember your true name, your true face, the last time you truly loved someone. Memory is the final door he hasn't broken. When memory fades, so will you. I went home. I gathered every old photo, every letter, every ID card, anything, proving I had ever existed. I laid them on the table, and then I cried, because they were all blank. My name was erased, my face smudged out, my passport white as snow, my birth certificate torn in half. No one remembered me. I recorded this final tape, the one you're listening to now, because I don't know if tomorrow morning the one who wakes up will still be me. Or maybe I've already disappeared long ago, and you, the one hearing this, are the last proof I ever lived. I no longer know who I am. But if you look into the mirror tonight and find the eyes staring back are not your own, remember me, because maybe he has already begun to live in you. Asterisk. Please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode. The Last Identity, the Buried Name. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk. I had reached the very end of my memory, but all that remained was a blurred name, an unfamiliar voice, and a strange reflection staring back at me from the mirror. I traveled to a remote village, a place where a child mysteriously went missing in 1999. No one ever found him. No one even remembered his name. I carried with me the last surviving scrap from an old hospital record, a piece of paper with shaky handwriting. My name is ... On the back of the paper was a blurred ink stain, as if someone had written something, only for another to erase it with their own blood. I went to the old hospital storage building, now nothing more than cracked concrete ruins. But according to Sarah, beneath it was where they buried erased files and sometimes people. I dug for 5 hours straight. Mud, shards of bone, torn cloth, burnt wires, until I found a small wooden box bound with rotting red string. I opened it. Inside was an old ID photo, scratched, faded, but unmistakably me when I was a child. Behind the photo was a folded slip of paper. David Miller, born 1991, found unconscious inside the storage house after the fire of 1999. I whispered the name at first. It stirred nothing. But then, an image exploded in my mind. Me, at 8 years old, standing in the middle of an operating room engulfed in flames. A man shouting, dragging me out, before being pulled back into the shadows. Just before the roof collapsed, I turned back and saw myself staring back at me. That was when I realized I wasn't the witness, I was the bait. They pulled me out, but he stayed inside, and ever since, he's been finding his way back. He used mirrors as gateways, creeping into my memory bit by bit, erasing my real identity to replace it with his. I fell to my knees on the cold ground, clutching the photo. I screamed my name. I am David Miller. The sky blackened. The wind howled. It felt as though the entire world pulled away, leaving only me, and a low voice whispering by my ear, "A name won't save you." Memories aren't strong enough, but you can trade places. I opened my eyes, and there he was, the reflection, finally standing before me. Not through the mirror, not through the videotapes, but in the flesh. He wore a black hoodie, half of his face burned, blood dripping from his hands. His voice was mine, but colder, emptier. We are the same, but only one gets to live. Choose, keep the memory, or keep the body, I asked. If I choose memory, do I disappear? He nodded. The soul remains, but unseen, unremembered. You'll become nothing more than a strange dream in someone else's mind. I asked again, and if I keep the body? He smiled. Then you live, but as me, I'll continue through you, just like I did with dozens before. I looked at the ID photo again. In the child's eyes I saw it, fear, despair, and a faint glimmer of hope. I knew I could not let him take over me. From my pocket, I pulled out a shard of mirror I had carried all these years, from that bathroom mirror long ago. I pressed it to my chest, directly above my heart, and whispered, "My name is David Miller. I choose to disappear, but I will not let you replace me." I clenched my hand tight. The mirror shard pierced my skin. Blood poured out. He screamed. His eyes cracked. His burned skin split open. His body dissolved into black smoke, sucked back into the very mirror shard. The mirror exploded with a sharp crack, echoing into the night. I collapsed. It felt as though the universe itself was draining out of me. I couldn't hear. I couldn't see. Only one thought lingered. I was once myself. I woke up in a real hospital. Police had found me unconscious at the ruins of the old storage house. I had no ID, no records, no recognition. They gave me a new name, X, nameless. I smiled, because I knew he had been buried, locked forever, in the true name that was mine. And though my memories were gone, I felt free for the first time. I was no longer David Miller. No one remembered that name, but he, the one who wanted to consume me, was gone as well. The mirror was broken, the identity buried, and I began again as myself, one last time. Asterisk, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode. The Nameless Man, the man who lived. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, I woke up in the hospital with a name that wasn't mine. The record said, X, nameless. They told me I had been found among the rubble. No papers, no family, no one to claim me. When the doctor asked if I remembered who I was, I smiled. I remember. But that name doesn't belong to me anymore. I was transferred to a cognitive rehabilitation center, a place for trauma patients who had lost their memory. There I learned how to introduce myself again. My name is I Am. I used to be. But soon, I realized I no longer wanted to tie myself to any name. Not because I had forgotten, but because I didn't want to be remembered wrong. I lived quietly, no friends, no family, no history. Only one habit remained. Each night, I wrote down my dreams. Each dream was a story. A man killed by his reflection in the bathroom. A girl who vanished after calling her own name too many times before a mirror. A child who existed only as a blur in the corner of a family photograph. At first, I thought they were nothing more than echoes of my trauma. psychological residue of nightmares I had survived. But then, I began to hear them, not in dreams. While awake, whispers through the pipes. From beneath the bed, from the dark corners of the room. I was Emily. I used to be Michael. Was erased, but I am still here. I realized something was living inside me. Not him, not the shadow in the mirror from long ago, but the others, the lost souls, the ones who had been replaced like me, but never saved. Some nights, I found myself standing, half asleep, with a charcoal pencil in hand, scrawling names across the walls. Daniel R. Claire H. Victor L. David Miller. My name was on that list too. One day in therapy, the doctor asked, "Why don't you choose a new name for yourself?" I replied, "Because I already carry too many names inside me." The doctor laughed, but I didn't, because I knew I was becoming a vessel, a shell of memory, where lost spirits could hide, like shards of broken mirrors, pieced together into a mirror that no longer reflected anyone at all. So, I made a choice. I returned to the beginning. The place it all started. Operating room 4, it had been sealed shut. The hospital partially demolished. But I slipped in one night. I stood in the empty room where I had once shattered the mirror, where he had dissolved. And I whispered, "If anyone is still here, tell me. I will speak your story." I didn't expect anything, but the darkness listened. The walls began to drip with water, and words appeared across the floor, in streaks of blood, one after another, as if written by invisible hands. I am the copy. I am the substitute. I am the trial version. I was never born. I fell to my knees, gasping for air, because I understood these selves were once real, once human, and now they survived only as shadows living inside me. I returned to my small rented room and opened my laptop. I found an audio file, the only one saved from before my death of identity. It was my voice, or someone who sounded like me, whispering, "If you survive, you must tell their story. Every person replaced must be named one last time." So I began to write. I created a podcast channel, no introduction, number, profile picture, no clear voice, only stories. Each week, another tale of the forgotten, another whisper from the dark, another soul who was once someone and had been erased from life. People began to call me the Nameless One. But I didn't need a name anymore, because now I was their voice. The voice of those who once lived, once loved, once gazed into a mirror, and were erased by it. Every time you hear me speak, maybe you don't realize it, but someone forgotten is sitting behind you, whispering along with me. I was once alive, and I am borrowing this voice to tell my story one last time. You can close this video. You can forget my voice. But if one day you look into a mirror and see a pair of eyes that feel familiar, yet nameless, that might be me. Asterisk, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode. Mirror 2, Not Everyone Escapes. Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. After surviving with a buried name, I chose to live quietly, anonymously. No social media, no contact, no searching for anyone. I thought, if I stayed silent long enough, he would sleep. I was wrong. One night, while recording my podcast, telling another story about someone replaced through the mirror I received, An anonymous email. Just one line. I saw it in my mirror. I don't know if it's me anymore. Attached was a short video. I opened it. A girl was filming herself standing in front of a mirror. The light was dim. She smiled, said she was a fan of the Reddit Mystery Channel, and that she had watched the series, The Man in the Mirror. Then, the camera tilted slightly, and in the mirror, the girl was still staring, even though in reality, she had already turned away. I shot up, cold sweat pouring down my forehead. Not because of the video, but because of the covered mirror. In my own room had just flickered with light, even though I had sealed it long ago. I walked over, pulled the cloth away. Nothing, just darkness, reflecting the room. But I wasn't there. I set up my camera, began recording. I stepped closer, touched the glass, cold, smooth, normal, until I saw someone pass behind me. I whipped around. No one. Turned back to the mirror. The figure was still there, standing still, head tilted. It was another me, but with no eyes, no mouth, just a blank face. I shut off the camera, sat in silence for hours, and then I understood. I wasn't the last one. I was only the one who temporarily escaped. I searched for Sarah, the former nurse, who had once helped me sever him, but her old house was locked. A neighbor told me she moved away after being haunted. Every time she looked in a mirror, she screamed. She kept saying she was dead, but still had a reflection. I followed the trail until I found her in a psychiatric care home in Darlot. She didn't recognize me, but when I whispered, "The mirror, he's coming back," she flinched, her eyes shining with fragments of memory. "Do you think there's only one mirror?" She pulled me close, whispering like she feared being overheard. "There's a second mirror. The first one lets him see out. The second is where he steps out into reality, and it was never destroyed." I asked, "Where is it?" She answered, "It isn't anywhere, because it's everywhere someone remembers him." I returned to my room. I had broken all the mirrors, but when I entered, there was a small round mirror sitting on my desk. I hadn't placed it there. I reached out, picked it up. That moment, the lights went out. Black screen, and from within the glass, a whisper, my voice, but hollow. I never left. Every person who hears this story is a new mirror. And then it struck me. Every video I told, every podcast I shared, every voice I broadcast was another shard of mirror opening him across the world. I thought I was telling stories, but I was only scattering him into countless reflections. I decided to stop everything, delete the channel, take down every video, disappear. But when I opened my laptop, the newest episode was already uploaded, though I hadn't made it. Title, Episode 0, the first one. I clicked dot on the screen, was me, narrating the entire series from episode 1 to episode 9, with a flat tone, empty eyes, and behind me, a mirror opening. I didn't remember ever recording that. The video ended with words, "I don't need you anymore." The screen went dark. I saw my reflection in the black monitor, but it blinked, and I didn't. I packed my things, left the city. On my last night, I left this recording. If you're hearing it, then it has reached you. I don't know who you are, but if you've ever looked into a mirror and seen something off, if you've ever heard a story and felt like you had already lived it, remember this: not everyone escapes, not everyone is real, and not every reflection is yours. You've just heard the final chapter of these true horror stories. A tale that began with a single glance and ended with hundreds of mirrors opening at once. Asterisk, please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to the next episode. End of series. Man in the Mirror.